Okay, you guys remember the raise your hand game we did at the beginning? All right, let's do it again. One more question, okay? And this ties into the lesson, all right? iPhone, Android. Where's my iPhone people? All right, where's the Android people? Okay, here's why I'm asking. What I'm going to ask you to do, I know how to do it on an iPhone. I don't know how to do it on an Android. Okay, so I'm going to give the iPhone instructions. You Android people, bunch of weirdos. No, I'm kidding. You Android people, you need to do this however it has to be done on an Android. I can't help you, okay? All right, so iPhone people, I want you to go to settings. Come on, it's all right. Go to settings.
You're giving us permission to get out our phone.
I'm giving you permission to get out your phone.
I'm already on Twitter.
No! I said go to settings. All right, now go to screen time. Oh, yep, there it is. Find screen time. Did you know this little device that you carry in your pocket will tell you exactly how many hours and minutes per day you spend on it? So here's what happens when I talk to the teenagers at church. Hey, you reading your Bible this week? No, Mr. Ben, I don't have time. Mr. Ben, I got baseball, I got basketball, I got piano, I got schoolwork, I got. Yeah, hey, are you reading your Bible this week? No, Mr. Ben, I can't do that. Hey, how much time are you spending on your smartphone? Well, Mr. Ben, I don't want to talk about that. All right. Now, I'm not going to ask you how many hours do you spend on your phone and make you raise your hands in shame. I'm not going to do that, okay? But you have some idea in your mind as to what a healthy amount of time spent on a digital device is. And if you think that number you just saw is too high, let's do something about that, okay? I used the video game illustration in the last hour. It applies to these two. All right, if I'm surfing the web too much, and I know Pinterest is not really the thing that it used to be, but whatever the current form of Pinterest that just sucks attention and time out of everybody's lives, whatever that is, Instagram or whatever, evaluate that, okay? Think about how much time I'm spending on that. Because a lot of times when we talk about being Mary instead of being Martha, we say we need to spend time in the Word, we need to do our daily Bible reading. Do you realize that the average American spends between 5 and 6 hours per day on their device? 5 and 6 hours per day. Young people, like teenagers, the average is 9 hours per day. Mr. Ben, I don't have time to read my Bible. Really? Come on, let's work on that, okay? All right, so go back to Luke 10. Let's talk a little more about Mary and Martha. And as you're doing that, I want you to tell me, are you familiar with Stephen Covey's Big Rocks illustration? How many of you have seen this illustration before? Okay, yeah, good. Most of you have. I figured that. He came out with this in the 1980s, so I think it's pretty well known at this point. I don't think we need to explore this. But if you've never seen it, the basic idea is that there are different priorities of things in your life. There are some things that are your big rocks. These are your highest priority things in life. Family, right? God, if you're spiritual. There are big rocks in life. Then there are smaller rocks that are important things, but they're not the big rocks, right? And then there's other things in life illustrated by sand that are just not that important. And the problem is, oftentimes we fill up our jar of life with sand. We pour sand into the jar, and then we try to cram the big rocks into the jar later. And it doesn't work because there's not enough room. But if you start with the big rocks first, then you can pour in the smaller rocks and kind of fill in some of those crannies in the jar. And then once all those are in, then you can pour in the sand and fill up all the space, right? You've seen this illustration. I think it's helpful. I also think what C.S. Lewis said is helpful. In a letter that he wrote to his friend Dom Griffiths in 1951, Lewis said that if we put first things first, we get the second things thrown in. But if we put second things first, we lose both the first and the second things. Here's what Lewis meant by this. If we take priorities in life that are considered secondary, but we make them primary, then by virtue of the fact of doing that, the things that really are primary, we don't have time for those anymore. We've replaced those with the secondary things. But when you take something that's supposed to be secondary and you make it primary, you even lose the joy and the value of the secondary thing. Now let me give you a silly illustration, but I think it'll make the point. How many of you have pets? I'll go back to the cats and the dogs thing, right? How many of you have pets? Okay. Why do you have a pet? Why? Because my child wanted one. Okay. Why? Why else? Why does your child want one? Because there's a companionship, right? Isn't there some level of enjoyment to having a dog? Notice what I said. Isn't there some level of enjoyment that people have by having a cat?
Yes.
I don't understand that, but I've been told that it's a real thing. Okay, we have pets because we want the joy of having a friend and a companion, somebody that when we come home, they're excited to see us and they'll crawl up in our lap and we can play with them. And there's just joy in having a critter in the house. But have you ever seen somebody who takes their pet and they go a little bit too far with it?
Oh, yes.
Have you ever noticed it's usually cat people? Come on, let's call it what it is. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. Okay. If you've seen people who go too far with their pets, what they've done is they've taken a secondary thing, one of life's little joys, and they've made it a primary thing. I take my little miniature schnauzer to the groomer 4 times a week. And I enter my dog into dog shows, and she's won every competition. Blah, blah. What is wrong with you? Why are you doing that? You have taken something that's a secondary thing, and now it rules over your life. Okay, so now you've lost the prioritized things, the big rocks of life. You don't have room for those because your little schnauzer has taken those away. But now you don't even enjoy having a pet anymore. The simple enjoyment of a pet, you don't even have that anymore because now this is like a job for you, right? You see that? That's what Lewis is talking about. So somebody says, I want to learn a musical instrument. Why? Well, because I just want to pick up something and use my hands and make a beautiful sound. I think that's cool. There's enjoyment in music. There is. But can you take music too far, right? Can you take art too far? And something that's a secondary thing becomes a primary thing. And then you become subservient to the secondary thing. That's what Lewis is talking about. So when we take the sand and we make that the big rock, it's not supposed to be like that. All right, so let's think back about Mary and Martha again. Luke 10, Mary and Martha. I want you to think about this idea with me. This story teaches us that there is a hierarchy of priority in life. There are things that matter, and then there are things that matter more. There are things that matter less. And we have to have the wisdom to know the difference. We have to have the discernment to know the difference. There's a hierarchy of priority in life. Now, you think about what Martha and Mary are doing with Jesus in their house. I want to use this illustration because I think this will help. It's not perfect, but it'll help. How many of you have a grandparent who is now deceased? And now that you've gotten a little bit older, maybe they died 5 years ago, 10 years ago, but now that you are older, now that you are more mature in your thinking, you look back on your relationship with your grandparent who is now deceased and you say, I really miss them. I had something really special with them, right? Yeah. I think that's something that as we go into adulthood ourselves, we look back with more mature thoughts and we say, you know, I remember those conversations I used to have with my granddad. I remember when my grandmother taught me how to sew. I remember when my granddad took me fishing. And we didn't catch anything, but it was just fun being with my granddad, right? And now he's gone, and I would give anything to be able to pick up the phone and call my grandmother and talk to her, call my granddad and talk to him, right? You've done that, okay? Now, I don't know about your childhood, but when I was growing up, we lived about 4.5 hours from my grandparents. Now, fortunately, both sets of my grandparents lived in the same town. So when we would go see them at holiday time, which is about the only time we went to see them, we would go see them at Thanksgiving. We would go see them at Christmas. We could hit both grandparents in the same town. That was nice. But tell me this. What's it like at your house at holiday time? Go ahead. Come on. What's it like? It's chaos. It's madness. Why?
Everybody's there.
Everybody's there, which is great, but it's also kind of like not great. Okay, why else is it madness? What do you do at the holidays? You get together with all those people, and what do?
Watch TV.
Argue.
Watch the football game. Okay, you're not allowed to contribute anything else. You've been shunned. All right, I'm kidding. You eat. Families get together and we eat, right? So now, if you grew up in a family like I did, where on my dad's side, I have 27 first cousins. We come together and we eat, and man, do we eat. And it is madness in the kitchen, right? It is a frenzy of activity in the kitchen because we're preparing for the meal. And you know what oftentimes happens, ladies? Moms, back me up on this. Holiday time rolls around and you get on social media and you see Martha Stewart's Instagram and she's like, I'm ready for the holidays. And you're like, oh man, my house doesn't look like that. Let me jump on Pinterest and find some annoying project for my husband to do. And all the guys said, amen. Okay? So then we put this pressure on ourselves that we feel like our house has to be spick and span, totally perfect. Everything has to be exactly ready for, a photo op of Southern Living magazine. Okay? We start putting that pressure on ourselves, and what do we miss out on? You miss out on the whole reason you came together to begin with. Yeah, it's Thanksgiving, but I'm not very thankful right now. Wish these people would get out of my house, right? Family has come together to spend time together with loved ones, but we are so crazy running around trying to make everything perfect for the gathering that we forget to sit down with Grandpa and have a cup of coffee. Mary understood that. Martha fell into that trap of, I've got to make everything ready. I've got to get everything perfect. Everything has to be just right for Jesus. And listen, I understand that. But I would give anything to be able to call my granddad and say, hey, Granddad, tell me about when you were preaching. Tell me about when you went to Milwaukee Avenue in Lubbock and held a meeting and they paid you with a chicken. That used to happen. Tell me how to handle this. I need your wisdom. I need your guidance. You see, what I miss most about the holiday time, now that I'm older and I can look back on it, is sitting down and talking with my family. That's what matters. I miss that. Martha got that, okay? All right, there's a hierarchy of priority in life. And when we have all of the duties and responsibilities that in and of themselves are good things, they're not the better things that Mary pursued. So I want you to think about this idea with me. Your life has 2 rooms in it. Your life has a living room and it has a kitchen. The living room is a place of intimacy. I don't mean sexual intimacy. Intimacy is a word that simply means closeness, togetherness. That's what happens in the living room. People come together, they sit down on the sofa, they sit in the recliner, and they visit, they talk, they engage with one another, and you have togetherness in the living room. Now contrast that with the kitchen. The kitchen is a place of work. It's a place of toil. It is a place of service. The kitchen is where the food is. It's where the utensils are. It's where the plates, the cups, the napkins, the silverware is. The kitchen is the place where the appliances are, and all the things that we need to do to prepare and serve, those are in the kitchen. The kitchen is not a place of intimacy like the living room. It's a place of work and service. Your life has both rooms. And the fact is, you need both rooms in your life. But the trouble comes when we spend too much time in one room to the neglect of the other. You guys ever watch that terrible TV show, House Hunters? No? Yes. You know the premise of that show, right? Meet Ben and Stacy. Ben is a painter. Stacy is a freelance photographer. They want to move out of their parents' house, and they have a budget of $12.9 million. Yeah, okay. You know how ridiculous this is. And so Ben and Stacy go around with the realtor in Malibu, California, or, Honolulu, Hawaii, and they're like, oh, I don't know, this house, okay. Now, I want you to imagine that the real estate agent in that show says, Ben, Stacy, I've got the perfect house for you. It's great. It's got 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and let me tell you about this kitchen. It is a gourmet kitchen. The very best of the best appliances are in this kitchen. You're going to love it. It's spacious. It's open. Nice big quartz countertops. You're going to love cooking in this kitchen. But there's one downside to this house. There's no living room in it. There's no place for you to gather with other people and sit down and talk and converse with each other. There's no place for you to have intimate conversation with people. Or imagine the opposite. Hey guys, this house is perfect. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. Check out this living room. Huge open concept floor plan. You've got space here for a 972-inch TV on the wall. This living room is awesome. But you know what? There's no kitchen in this house. You're going to have to go out to eat every meal because there's no way to serve food here. Would you be interested in either one of those houses? No. No. Your house needs both. Your life needs both. You can't live in just one of these rooms, okay? Now, as we think about this idea of the living room being a place of intimacy and togetherness, and if you think about the kitchen being a place of work and service, I want to share something with you that I came across in a book. And I guess I'll recommend the book. I mean, it's not a life-changing book, okay? But it's a book called Having a Merry Heart in a Martha World, written by a woman named Joanna Weaver. I don't know what her religious affiliation is. She's a believer in some capacity. And she wrote a book that's entirely based on this passage, Luke 10, 38 to 42. She had some really good things to say in this book. But she also had a lot of fluffy stuff that I didn't think was very helpful, so I'm not going to recommend it. But I read through this book as I was preparing for these lessons, and I came across some things that I thought were good. She put together what she called a balance checklist. How to know if you need more time in the kitchen, how to know if you need more time in the living room. I thought she had some good things to say on this point. How do you know that you need more time in the kitchen? She said, do you feel that you are slightly depressed? You have this vague sense of unhappiness in life. You go through life and you just feel down a little bit. Or do you have a resentment of intrusion in your life? When somebody comes and asks something of you, does that bother you? Why are you bothering me with this? Take care of it yourself. Or maybe you have a frustration over your direction in life. Is this all there is? A sense of purposelessness. I don't have a purpose. Maybe you feel that. Maybe it comes in the form of increased self-indulgence. I feel a little depressed. I don't really know what's going on. And you know what the answer to that problem is? Chocolate. That's dangerous territory, friends. If you have an apathetic attitude, there's nothing in life that stirs your emotions, that stirs your soul and just moves you. That doesn't happen very much. And you have a low energy level. If these things characterize you, then what you need to do is go to the kitchen and start serving others. You see, these are the qualities of a person who is not giving, but only receiving. These are the qualities of a person who is not doing for others, not doing unto others. And so if you feel these things, then maybe the answer is, let's get in the kitchen, let's roll up our sleeves and go to work. But there's also some signs that maybe you need more time in the living room. If you have a lot of irritability and frustration, you've been spending so much time in the kitchen of life, working, toiling so that you can give and serve others, that when your children come along and make demands of you, you snap at them. I am constantly doing things for you all the time. Would you people just leave me alone? Parents, you ever done that before? You're uncomfortable with the quiet. Go talk to some empty nesters. Hey, what's it like for your kids to not be at home anymore? The first thing they will say to you, sure is quiet. Okay? If I'm uncomfortable with the quietness of life, what that typically means is I've been in the kitchen so long serving and working. There's a hustle and bustle of activity every moment of my life that I can't be comfortable sitting in solitude and enjoying it. I have a low joy threshold. I don't feel this undercurrent of joy in my life. And it's because I'm constantly giving. I'm constantly in the kitchen serving. That it's really hard for me to sit back and say, life is good. I have a sense of isolation. This is Martha. Lord, don't you care that my sister's not helping me? She's left all of this service for me to do. No one is helping me. I'm the only one who is giving to others. There's an increased drivenness in life. I have to be busy. If I'm not busy doing something, I got to go find something to do. I got to go out and find something that needs to be done so I can do it. A sense of dryness and emptiness. I mentioned that jar of oil, right? That God miraculously made it so that the oil, that widow's oil, never ran out. The fact is, my jar of oil runs out sometimes. And so I have to be wise as to how far I'm tipping the jar. How much oil am I letting out? Okay? If I want my oil lamp to shine, as Jesus called me to do in Matthew 5:14, I have to be judicious about the oil that's in my supply. I thought this was a really good checklist. If you feel these things, maybe it means that you're out of balance. All right. Go with me to Mark chapter 2. Mark 2. All right, can I get somebody to read? Mark 2, verse 27. The disciples are walking through a field. They pluck some heads of grain to eat on the Sabbath day, and the Pharisees get all bent out of shape. That was kind of their normal posture. They're bent out of shape. And they're mad at Jesus because his disciples have plucked these heads. Oh, they're working on the Sabbath. Okay, Mark 2:27. Somebody read that for me.
I got it.
All right, Ethan?
One Sabbath, he was going through the grain fields, and as they made their way, his disciples began to pluck heads of grain. And the Pharisees were saying to him, "Look, why are they doing what is not lawful on the Sabbath?" And he said to them, "Have you never read what David did? When he was in need and was hungry, he and those who were with him, how he entered the house of God in the time of Abiathar, the high priest, and ate the bread of the presence, which it is not lawful for any but the priest to eat, and also gave it to those who were with him. And he said to them, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath."
Okay, read verse 27 again, nice and loud.
And he said to them, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath.
The Sabbath was made for man. Jesus understood that the Sabbath day that God gave was intended to be a blessing for his people. And you're probably familiar with where the idea of the Sabbath comes from, right? In 6 days, the Lord God made the heavens and earth and all that is in them. And in Genesis 2, 1 through 3, on the seventh day, God rested. It's not that he was tired. He ceased from his labor. That's the idea. He stopped working. And so Moses in Exodus 20, when he gives the Ten Commandments, or when God gives the Ten Commandments through Moses, God says, in 6 days you will do all your work. For in 6 days the Lord God made the heavens and the earth. But on the seventh day, rest. God understood that we needed rest. And so he gave the Sabbath to be a blessing. But you know what the Jews often did? They worked on the Sabbath. Or even if they didn't work on the Sabbath, they were angry about the fact that they weren't working on the Sabbath. We're not going to look at this, but Amos chapter 8 and verse 5 has the Jews saying, when will the Sabbath day be over so that we can get back to work? God, why are you making us take a day off? We could be making money today. In 2 Chronicles chapter 36, the Babylonians come into the land of Judah. They destroy Jerusalem. They burn it to the ground. They carry the Jews off into captivity. How long were they in captivity? Do you remember?
70 years?
Okay, say it confidently this time, because that's right. 70 years. Yeah, 70 years. Yeah, you're right. You had the right answer. 70 years they were in captivity. 2 Chronicles 36 says one of the reasons they went into captivity is because they never observed the Sabbath of the seventh year. You guys remember the law said every 7 years they were not supposed to plant or harvest. That in the 6th year, God would give them a bumper crop to provide them enough food throughout the 7th year. Let the land rest, God said, and they didn't do it. God understands this principle of rest. And I'm going to suggest to you that we need to observe the Sabbath. I don't mean in the Jewish Mosaic law kind of a way that we make it a law that's a requirement. I'm suggesting to you we need to observe the Sabbath in principle. Your body, your mind needs a break. And you've got to build that into your schedule. So what did the Jews do on the Sabbath day if they weren't working in the fields? If they weren't selling oxen and sheep? What did they do on the Sabbath day? What did Jesus do on the Sabbath day? He went into the synagogues and he worshiped. That's what the Jews did. It was a day of worship for them. They went to church on the Sabbath day. Most of you have jobs where you're off on the weekend. You're already off on Sunday as it is. And most likely you're going to be at worship on Sunday, assuming everyone in your family is healthy. Why not let Sunday be your Sabbath, so to speak? Let that be your day of rest. Some of us work on Sunday. It's not a day of rest for me. My day's Monday. I take every Monday off. And on Mondays, we try to do fun things with the kids. Maybe we get some chores done around the house. We try to do things that are restful and contemplative in nature. No, we're not observing the Sabbath in any kind of Jewish sense. I'm just saying, you need a break, guys. Yeah, but if I don't take a break, I'm not going to get everything done. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. What really matters? We talked about that. What are the priorities of Jesus? One of those things was hearing the words of Jesus. Mary illustrated that. You've got to find time to do that. You've got to make time to do that. All right, your thoughts. What do you got?
Sometimes Sundays don't feel restful.
Sometimes Sundays don't feel restful. Okay. Well, wait, because you're watching the football game?
No, that's what I do feel. No,
How do you mean?
It's just a full day, right? Like
Absolutely.
You get up and you get your kids ready, you try to get yourself ready, you get in the car, you go to Bible class, then you come to worship, and with children, it can be difficult sometimes trying to get them to be quiet, or you got to take the baby out or whatever. And then you go to Mama's house and you have lunch, and that's fine, but it's not your house. And then you get to watch football. And then you go back and you wrestle the kids some more. And, you know, sometimes you get a lot of the lessons.
I get that.
Sometimes you get a little bit.
Yeah.
But then after that, there's Bible studies, there's potluck.
There's visiting preachers that come, and yeah, I get it. But I think I think the solution to that, though, is recognize that this is a season, right? You know, the young kid, this is a season. It will end. And there will be a time when Sundays are not so crazy, right?
I really just was thinking aloud about, or processing what you're saying, and it is, I run all the time, and I don't think a thing about it, but I don't want my kids to run all the time. I want them to be able to sit and take a break and contemplate what God has for them, and I have to emulate that if they're gonna do it.
That's right. That's right. They're not going to do what we don't model.
Right.
Yeah, good. It's hard. And listen, please don't think that because I'm up here talking about this, I do this right and I do it perfectly. I don't. It's a struggle for us just as much as it is for anybody, okay? What else? Come on, we got the beach ball going now. Let's keep tossing it around. What else have you got?
I just had a thought on the living room and kitchen thing.
Yeah.
What if you're standing in the doorway?
What do you mean?
I mean, both. Like you're wrestling between both. Like you just
need the living
can't
room,
make it.
we also need the kitchen.
Yeah.
You got 1 foot in the kitchen and 1 foot in the living room.
Okay, but to me that kind of sounds... Well, but what I'm saying is we need balance of both, right? So it kind of sounds to me like that's what you want.
Balance. Just feeling cool. You're just stuck. Yeah, just stuck.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean that.
No, you're good. Okay, well, let's see if we can pursue that a little bit. All right, what do you guys think?
So
Did I see a hand over here?
I totally follow where she's coming from. I want to sit and just talk to my daughter or talk to my wife or talk to my son, but I've got these other things that are pulling my attention. So now I've got this guilt, mom guilt, dad guilt. It's a real thing. I've got this guilt because I've got these things I've got to do, but I've got these other things that are way more important that also I need to do.
Okay.
So sometimes we feel pulled because it's the guilt that's pulling us. And I think that's where scheduling is really important. That this is just, somebody told me a long time ago, you've got to be where your feet are. And when we have our head a million places, but our head isn't where our feet are, then that's where that pull gets worse and worse and worse. And especially those who work from home, that's so much more of a popular thing these days that it's almost like work never leaves, or home never leaves, or whatever it might be. And I've got to do this, but that's okay. That's what this time is for. But now I leave the office, and now I'm home, and that's okay. That's where I am, and that's what I need to be doing right now. So maybe that would be helpful.
Okay.
Having some dedicated time.
I like that expression. Be where your feet are. That's a good idea. All right. What do you think? What else?
I think sometimes too, even combining those, that we can have those moments of intimacy and that closeness while we're serving, whether that's involving others in that
Yeah.
service with us or who we're serving. And so sometimes I think like having it be an open concept group where you're really like enjoying both of those things and partaking, because that intimacy often comes when you are serving others, that you're receiving as you're giving.
No, that's great. I remember sometime back, my wife and two other peers got together, and they were in the kitchen cooking freezer meals to distribute to people at church. Some had babies and shut-ins and some stuff like that. Okay, well, that was kind of a blending of both, right? We're literally in the kitchen serving, but we're also doing it with friends, and we have this mutual reason for doing this that's going to help and bless others, and we can enjoy some nice conversation together while we're doing this and be closer with our friends. I think for guys, one of the best things we can do as men is serve each other shoulder to shoulder, working side by side, getting outside, doing manual, laborious kinds of tasks. Let me say it this way. Let's sit down across the table with another gentleman and say, "So tell me about your feelings." How do you think that conversation's going to go? Right? You wives are saying, "Not good, I've tried that." Okay? Men don't do that. But when I've been able to get men to open up is when we had a church work day, and all the guys came out and we were putting mulch in the landscaping beds, or we were painting the handrails outside, or changing light fixtures. And I'm working side by side with a guy, and I can ask him a question, and he'll start talking because, he's distracted. He's working on something. He's not really thinking about, oh, the preacher's trying to probe into my life as I'm changing this light fixture. He doesn't think about it, right? And then he opens up to me and he's like, "Hey, we had a little moment there. We connected." Okay? Right? So these things can blend together, right? And I appreciate that point. That's a great observation. Okay, let me hit this next passage, and then we'll come back to this idea that you raised. All right? Go to John 17. John 17. Sometimes when you read the Bible, you have these light bulb moments. It doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen sometimes. And when it does, I think it's pretty powerful. I had one of those moments when I was reading John 17, not preparing for these lessons, but when I read this, I thought, hey, I can use that, okay? So John 17 and verse 1, Jesus, this is the night that he's going to be betrayed. He prays and he says, "Father, the hour has come. Glorify your Son, that the Son may glorify you." And he says in verse 4, "I have glorified you on the earth, having accomplished the work which you have given me to do." Now, what was the work that God had given him to do? Yeah, to accomplish our redemption, right? To come to this earth and live among us and teach and die and be raised from the dead for our justification. Okay, that's the work that God gave him to do. And Jesus says, "I've done it. I'm 33 years old. I've been doing your work all of my life, and I've done it." But I want to highlight an expression that Jesus gives here. Look at verse 4 again. I have accomplished the work which you gave me to do. I want you to think about that. Jesus' schedule was filled with a lot of things. We've talked about already how he was constantly teaching, how he was healing, how he was serving and giving. Do you think that when Jesus went to the cross, that there were still other sick people out there who needed healing? When Jesus went to the cross, were there still people there who needed bread? Yeah. But Jesus says, Father, I've done what you gave me to do. I think sometimes we allow our schedules to be filled with the demands of other people. We feel like we have to do things that other people want us to do. We have to do the things that other people maybe irresponsibly didn't take time to take care of themselves. Guys, I think this happens to us at work a lot. Oh, hey, Johnny, I didn't have time to send this email to corporate. Can you take care of that for me? In those moments, I think about what my wife often says. That sounds like a personal problem to me. She doesn't say it in a snarky way. She says, excuse me, that sounds like a personal problem to me. Would you like a lollipop? Right? She says it in a sweet way. I think a lot of the demands on our time that we feel are demands that are placed upon us by other people. And we need to remember, what did God give me to do? Because what God gave me to do matters more than anything else that somebody else is going to give me, right? Oh man, if I don't coach soccer this spring, nobody's going to do it. Listen, if you can fit that into your schedule and you can still maintain balance in life, then you coach soccer. That's great. But somebody else will step in and coach soccer. God didn't give me to do that, right? He didn't say, Ben, you have to do this. Now, I still do it because I think I can find balance and still do that, right? But I have to say, as a husband, as a dad, what did the Father give me to do? So dads, let me hear from you. Husbands, men, what has God given you? In the scriptures, what has God told you as a man is your job?
Love your wife.
Love your wife. Lead your family. What else? 1 Timothy 5:8, if any man does not provide for his own household, God gave us that. That's what God gave me to do. So how can I, like Jesus, when I get to the end of my life, how can I say to him, I have done the things that you gave me to do? Can I say that? Or am I going to say, listen, I neglected the things that you gave me to do because I gave more time and more priority to the things that other people gave me to do, right? Okay, ladies, let me hear from you. What has God given you?
Everything. Love your husband.
Love your husbands, okay. Love your children, Titus 2. All right, what else? What other scriptures speak to, okay, domestic responsibilities? That's not to say your husband can't ever help, okay? We'll talk about that some more in the 2 o'clock hour. But domestic things generally fall under the wife's governance. Can you say, God, I did the things that you gave me to do? Those are the prioritized things. Those are the big rocks, right? Serve my family. Serve my church family. These, in investing in other people, right? Love your neighbor as yourself. These are the things that God has given me to do as a husband, as a wife, as a dad, as a mom. I have to do what Jesus did. As a preacher, I can't take every appointment that is requested of me. I can't meet with every person in the church who makes a request of my time. I can't counsel every couple that needs counseling. I can't go help every man do that Pinterest project that his wife gave him. I can't be everywhere to serve everybody. I'm limited. And so there are times when I have to say to our members, I'm sorry. It is really important for me to be at home tonight. I can't meet with you tonight. Let's find another time that works for both of us, but I can't do it right now. Okay? When I started preaching in South Carolina, one of the first lessons I did was get to know the Walker family, right? They didn't know us, we didn't know them. So I wanted to talk about how I viewed my work as a preacher and what their expectations of me should be and so forth. And one of the things that I said that really stuck with people is I told them, I need you to understand that I can stop being a preacher and go to heaven. I can't stop being a husband and a father and go to heaven. So my family comes first. And I need you to understand that there are times when I have to say no to you in order to say yes to my family, and you got to be okay with that. I will say yes to you as often as I possibly can, but I can't do it all the time. Okay? And I think people understand that and they appreciate that. And we have to get to a point where we say the same things. Listen, PTA, I support what you're doing. I care about the schools. I'm going to give you what I can, but I can't give you everything. Okay? I want to do right by my kids. I want to do right by your kids, but I can't do everything. I have limitations. There are things that I have to say no to. So how do we say yes then to the things that matter? Let's look at this passage in 1 Peter chapter 4. It's on the screen, but if you want to turn to it, that's fine. 1 Peter 4, verse 8. Above all, keep loving one another earnestly. Show love to your brothers and sisters in Christ. Because, as Peter says, if you do that, your love may cover a multitude of sins. Show hospitality to one another without complaining. Man, isn't that hard? Especially when the visiting preacher has 4 small kids. Showing hospitality to others. This is where the kitchen and the living room come together, right? We do the prep work and the service in the kitchen so that we can enjoy one another's company in the living room, right? I don't want you to raise your hand, okay? But I'm going to put this question out there, and I want you to answer silently, because I know the answer for some of you. Oh, I can't have company over to my house because I don't have a very large house, or I don't have a very nice house, or I don't have nice, fine china for them to eat on. I just have paper plates and utensils, and I can't have people over because my house doesn't look like such and such. I know some of you feel that. Please be assured that those things don't matter. I have been in very nice homes for meals, like the Reynolds home, where they have graciously opened up everything that they have to my family, and that's been wonderful. I have also been in Honduras, sitting in a home that was about the size of 3 of these tables put together, with my feet under a table that wasn't very large, and it was filled with food that I to this day don't know what it was. But I know who made it. And I know the heart from which it came, and it was a wonderful meal. It's not about your crystal. It's not about your china. It's not about the size of your home. It's about being together with people who have the same heart as you, okay? Be hospitable to one another without complaining. Oh man, the Walkers are coming and they've got those terrible children. Oh man, they're gonna dirty up the house. Okay. Then let's pitch in and let's clean the house together after they leave. We'll work it out, okay? But we're blessed when we serve. All right. Everybody has a gift. Verse 10, use your gifts to serve one another because God's grace gave you that gift. Some have the gift of speaking, verse 11. Some have the gift of service, but in all of our gifts, God is glorified. And in all of these opportunities that God gives to us, our hearts expand. These are opportunities that God gives us to stretch our heart's capacity for mercy and compassion and love and togetherness. In these moments, God teaches us. In these moments, God teaches us compassion and mercy and love and service. And so what I'm afraid oftentimes happens is we say, well, I'm just going to say no to this because I just can't seem to find time for this right now. I can't find time to serve this family from church in this way right now. Life's too busy. I can't find time to go to this place and help these people. Life's just too hectic right now. We pray to God that He would make us more like Jesus, that He would make us more loving, that He would make us more merciful and more compassionate. And then when He gives us opportunities, we say, nope, I don't have time for that right now. Right? You see, we need to say yes to these things because these are the opportunities where God makes us more like Jesus. When I say no to everything that other Christians need from me, then the focus shifts inward. And it becomes all about me. And I don't grow when the focus is on me. I grow when I'm giving. I grow when I'm selfless. But you know what? If all of us adopt that attitude, there's going to be times when people are serving me and giving to me and helping me as well, right? We're all in this together. We're all on the same ship, and we all have an oar in our hand, and we have to choose to use it. Sometimes we need a break. Sometimes I get tired. But these opportunities that God gives, they make us more like Jesus. He teaches us in those moments. So, say yes to those things that truly matter. Say no to the things that don't. And when you've done that for a little while, maybe something that's of lesser importance comes along and you're given another opportunity to coach T-ball. And maybe at that point in life, you'll say, yeah, you know what, I think I can take that on right now. And great, you should do that. One of the best ways you can get out into the community and meet people and invite them to church is by coaching T-ball, right? We've made a lot of contacts through community volunteering opportunities. God's giving us opportunities to talk to people about the gospel because we've said yes to some things that ultimately are secondary things. But can we use those to our advantage spiritually? Can we use those to advance the kingdom of God? Stacy and I have people that come up to me and say, I want my daughter to play soccer for Mr. Ben because it seems like everybody on the team loves Mr. Ben. They do. I'm a pretty cool soccer coach. All right? We have a lot of fun. And I don't get overly competitive with 8- and 9-year-old girls. You can't. They're too fragile. Man. Whoa. Say yes when you can. But recognize that balanced checklist. You know what? I'm in a season of life right now where I just can't take that on. I need to say no to a lesser thing so I can say yes to the bigger rocks. Okay? This is fluid. It's going to change throughout life. There's going to be different seasons and different ways that you deal with these things from year to year even. Okay?